Music Club. I want to welcome you to our program for November. Our music club has been around for a while, since 1951, and we have been a part of the American Federation of Music Clubs and also a part of the National Federation of Music Clubs. These clubs have designated November as American Music Month. And so each year we try to plan programs, live programs, based on the music of American composers or programs with American themes. In the past, we've had programs based on jazz, African American spirituals, and just general American composers, such as the composers during World War I. Last year, or 2 years ago, we had a program that was based on the music of the First World War. But this year we're doing something a little bit different. Our program for this month is a virtual program, and I have to tell you, we've worked very hard to be able to do this. But our program this year is based on the music of the Second New England School of Composers and Music. And as I was looking into the background of these composers, I began to ask myself the question, well, what was the first New England School of Music? And I discovered that these composers were also American composers, but very early American composers, many before or during the American Revolution, such as William Billings and Supply Belcher, which is a great name for a composer. And many of their songs were written for the church. Their tunes or their psalms were written for church use. Some of you may have heard the tune When Jesus Wept the Falling Tear by William Billings. And so these songs were during the American Revolution in the early 1800s. Well, about 100 years later, there came a group of composers who were basically from around Boston and New York, and these were designated as the Second New England School of Composers. They had European influences in their music, but they were definitely straining to put an American voice within their music. And some of these composers you will hear today by some of our own music club members. And I'd really like to thank these people for working on their program, working on their music, and allowing me to video them. You'll be hearing today Willa Cather on piano. You'll hear Dr. Jim and Gay Smith on violin and piano. And then Jolene Williams singing some beautiful songs, accompanied by Dr. Elson Portugal. The three composers that will be represented today are George Chadwick and the first American woman composer, or she's the first recognized American woman composer, Amy Beach, and the composer recognized as the leader of this New England school, Edward MacDowell. Now, I remember playing his To a Wild Rose as a piano student.
Pardon me. Did someone mention my name? I heard the name of that tune. So many people associate me with it. And it's appropriate that they should do so. After all, it's the thing for which I'm most remembered, although I did compose so many other things. However, it did at least pay the rent.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it did. I'd like to ask you some questions since you're here.
Well, make them pertinent, if you will. My time is very important.
Okay. Well, what an honor to have the Edward MacDowell in our midst. Tell me a little bit about your early training and musical influences.
Well, you know that there's some dispute about the time of my birth. I was there, but I don't actually recall. It's purported to have been in December of 1860. I began piano lessons at a rather early age. My mother encouraged me, and after she realized that I was extraordinarily gifted, she moved me to Paris, where I was part of the conservatoire. I was there for a year before moving to Frankfurt, Germany. I went to the Hoch Conservatory there. I studied piano and composition. I studied counterpoint and fugue. I was chosen to play in concerts. In fact, I was once introduced to Franz Liszt and had an opportunity to play for him one of my own compositions. He was quite impressed and encouraged me to continue with my compositions.
Well, you've had a lot of European experience. I wonder why are you considered a leader in American music?
Well, after all, when I returned to the States, I did teach at Columbia University, and I actually established the music department there. But I did quite a bit of teaching overseas as well. In fact, upon the retirement of one of my professors, I became an instructor myself. I taught for a brief period of time, then I took personal students. In fact, I took quite a delight in one of my students who later became the love of my life. Marian Nevins. I was secretly married to her in July of 1884. There was a public ceremony to make it proper just a short time after that. We lived in Germany for several years, during which time I dedicated myself largely to my compositions. I'm noted especially for my piano concerto in A minor, and also my fantasy pieces, of course.
Well, how would you describe your music?
Well, some people say that it is rather romantic, and I suppose that it is, in the sense that it has to do with reflections upon nature and things such as that. The place that we established as a retreat for people to come inspired me in much of my work. We landed there after financial difficulties forced us to return to America in 1886. For nearly 10 years we were located in Boston, but then in 1896 we purchased land in New Hampshire, and we established a cabin there and built on that property. We established a little bit of a colony where people could come on retreat, not just musicians, you see, but also people of other artistic inclinations, painters and poets and such. There were quite a few people who were inspired by the setting that my wife and I established.
Well, that sounds, in fact, I've heard of that retreat center.
Have you been there?
No.
Oh, you should go.
Oh, I would
It would
love
inspire
to.
you.
I would love to. One of the organizations I belong to, the Sigma Alpha Iota Women's Fraternity, actually helped to support that colony now. You've had a lot of wonderful things in your life. Is there anything you regret?
Well, I do regret the end of my career at Columbia. I had quite a dispute with one of the administrators there. It didn't go very well, and it became so publicly known that, well, I became rather absent-minded. In fact, shortly after that time, I was involved with a rather tragic accident with a Hanson cab. I retreated into a kind of depression. It was almost a childlike state. I became so dependent. My life wasn't worth very much after that. I died shortly thereafter, I'm afraid.
Oh my goodness, that's terrible. Well, we appreciate your time today so much.
The person that you should appreciate most of all is my wife, Marian, because you see, she continued to further the influence that I had already established with our colony. She worked on it for more than 48 years. And just think about the music that we have had, the inspirations that we've had from people who were there, scholars and artists of all sorts. Leonard Bernstein was there.
Yes, I've heard that. And Thornton Wilder and Aaron Copland, many, many famous people.
Love Copland.
Well, you know what? We need to get on with our program. I
can't wait to
you
see it.
being here. Well, I hope you enjoy it very much.
I'll be on my way.
Okay.
There aren't any Hanson cabs anywhere near here, are there?
I don't think you have to worry about that. Wasn't that unbelievable? Wow. Well, it's time to move on, and we're going to watch our program. If you would like to read more about the Second New England School of Composers, there will be some program notes and also program notes about the individual pieces that will be played today. Thank you so much for watching.